constructing our car and exploring the selection tools within the Photoshop workspace. So I'm going to go back to my background copy. This is the source layer where I'm getting all of my pixels and my images from, and then I'm placing them one by one on separate layers until they line up and create a finished car. So we've already looked at the rectangular marquee tool, making rectangular selections. The elliptical marquee makes ovals or circular selections, and you can hold some keys in order to make them perfect, like the shift key to make a perfect circle. And then the next group of selection tools that we're going to look at are the lasso tools. So first of all, the basic lasso tool, kind of looks like a lasso that a cowboy would use, makes a free-form selection. So this would be maybe a little difficult to make a perfect selection by just hand drawing it. It's kind of like using a pencil tool. And then again, if you went to cut that, that would obviously not be the right shape that we need. So Command Z or Edit Undo is your best friend. And then Command D for deselect, or you can go up to the select menu and go down to deselect. That can also be really helpful to know. So the lasso tool in general is good at making basic selections. So like say I want basically this area. I can just very quickly draw it without having to worry about using a more precise selection tool. So that in this case is not what we're going to use, but it's helpful for things like the content aware fill, or say I want to just get rid of this part. Maybe I would use like the eyedropper tool, select the background color, notice it shows up as my foreground color, and then I can fill this area very quickly, either going down to edit fill and choosing foreground color as my content, or hitting the key command Option Delete, and voila, it is gone. So that is one helpful hint for using the lasso tool, or one good reason to use it. One of the other tools down here that might be a little bit more precise for selecting straight lines, you can use the Polygonal Lasso. I don't see any straight lines on this car, but just to kind of show you what it does, you can make like polygons, different multi-sided shapes. It's really good for selecting architecture or buildings. And then whenever you're done, you can either click back on the original point, or you can hit enter, and Photoshop will finish that selection for you. So that's the Polygonal Lasso. Can be very helpful for making like perfectly horizontal lines by holding shift, or perfectly vertical lines. You know, if you hold shift, it can help you with those polygonal shapes. Okay, and then the last lasso tool is the magnetic lasso tool. I find this one the most helpful. So if we zoom in on, say, this window here, if you click and place your first point, and then just kind of zip along that edge, it is like a magnet. So it magnetizes, or it sticks to the edge of contrast. So if I get way off course, you can see, whoops, it's off course. So then you can hit the delete key to go back in time and get back on track. So that's a helpful keyboard shortcut. Okay, and then again, whoops, if you get off track, go back in time, delete, 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 and then just place a point every once in a while, and then Photoshop will help make that easier for you. Okay, and then you hit enter when you're finished, and then there is my selection with the magnetic lasso tool. So it's pretty easy if you have a really good contrast between your object and the background. Now, if I was trying to select something like this, and I got down in this area here, you notice that this rock and the background are very similar in color, so it's not doing a perfect job. So that's something that I might have to go back in. So say I just wanted this rock area, and then hit enter. Obviously that's not a perfect selection. I have some areas that are missing because the background and my foreground are such a similar color. Photoshop isn't able to see that very well. So what I can do is click on Add to Selection on my options bar. Again, this changes with every tool. So my selection options are to make a new selection, to add to selection, or to subtract. So in this case, I'm going to add to selection. I want to add this little part. And then I might just use the lasso tool and just try and freeform draw that. And it can help if you exhale while doing this. There we go, and then we want to subtract that part there. And it doesn't have to be super exact because no one's going to be scrutinizing your photograph this close up. Okay, and then maybe I want to add this part here. So that's where those options can come in handy. And that's why it's nice that we have so many selection tools to use, because sometimes they work well together. Okay, so that is using the Lasso Tools in order to help put our car back together. Command C, Command V. I have my window now. I'm going to rename this back window so I can stay organized in my workflow. And I am starting to put my car back together. Obviously it's too big, so to resize I hit Command T for transform, or go down to edit, free transform, and then I can line up my window. Now it might be hard to kind of see how big it needs to be, so I can lower the opacity to about 50%, and now I can see how it lines up because I'm seeing through the window. So when I hit Command T, might hold shift so that it constrains the proportions, and then I can just line that up. And then when I'm finished, and you can use the arrow keys on your keyboard to move it into place a little bit more gradually. And then when you're done, you can turn the opacity back up. So that is the Lasso Tools.